So here's my Greek. That's all you're going to get. Kalimera Thessaloniki. No, it gets better. It gets better. Ευχαριστώ που με πήρατε εδώ. Does that sound like strange enough? So this is me. My name is Rafaella Isidori. I do a lot of things because I've been doing it for a very long time. But mostly I work in design, strategy, communication, and branding. But this is more better representation of what I do. Today I'm going to talk to you about the 7 pillars of design and how they can apply to your life as well. And some gratitude to be expressed. This talk was inspired by Alex White's The Element of Graphic Design, which is a book, a basic book on graphic design. But it can be applied to any form of design. And on that, a bit of a disclaimer. When I say design, I do not mean aesthetics. I do not mean how things look. To me, design is a process. It's not the color or the font. So to put it with Steve Jobs, design is a funny word. Some people think design means how it looks, but of course, if you dig deeper, it's really how it works. Basically, poop plus design returns decorated poop, and it still stinks. So the general principles that guide visual graphic design can relate to many aspects of the design process, but also of our lives. You should think of these principles holistically. Go below the surface. Being aware and mindful of them can help us design better products and better lives. Another note of warning before we could start. These principles should be treated as guidelines, as indications, not as imprisoning rules or binding rules. We have enough cages as it is. So see them as sliding switches that we can modulate to achieve better, more appealing, and value-added designs and lives. So let's get going. The first principle is space. I'm having a hard time looking at all these things together, so if I look strange, bear with me. Space can be defined as the area within, around, above or below an object or objects. It can be physical, 3-dimensional. It can be the space we occupy and fill, like here today, or it can refer to a visual, intangible space. April Greiman fills her space up. Paul Rand leaves it empty. Space is also the area that we have at our disposal for the task we're working on. It can be the final print size, the screen of a computer, or more recently, the screen of a mobile device. In life, space is what surrounds us, physically, mentally, and spiritually. In design, white space is especially important. White space is the space between the elements and within the elements. And it's never empty space. Let me show you something. Consider it the silent pause that when listening allow you to make one word distinct from the other, and so you understand what I'm saying. This is hard to read. So white space allows us the space to understand and discern elements from each other. It's also a powerful element of design. It can enable some objects to exist at all, like the fork here, or the body of the panda, It can also be used to do little clever things, like the arrow in the FedEx logo that makes the logo a little more special. In life, white space is also time to recharge quietly. It can be physical, like sleep, or time away from work. For extroverts, white space can be fun time with people. For introverts like me, time away from people. White space can be mental, achieved through mindful activities like meditation or running, or simply unplugging from technology and from life. We need white space in life to better see, feel, and appreciate the filled space, just like the words I showed you before. And to also see things that are not really there unless we pay attention to them. So I'm going to try a little experiment with you, that was suggested when I gave this talk last month. I'm going to give you, at the end of every little principle, a little white space time to let whatever I'm saying sink in. And then I'll ask you if you think this is a good idea or not for next time. So let's let this sink in. The second principle is that of unity in harmony. When all elements in a design are in harmony, there are no individual parts perceived as more important than the whole. What we perceive is the final united outcome. And achieving harmony is one of the main goals of good design. And just like in a design space, when all the elements in our lives are in harmony, our quality of life is superior and richer. To avoid chaotic or boring and lifeless, which are the two opposite designs, we need a good balance between unity and variety. And to avoid boredom or stress in our lives, we need a good balance between what we know and what we don't know yet, what is safe and what is exciting. So how do we achieve unity? The first way we can do it is through proximity. This is where the elements that are physically close are seen as related, as in this example. Do you see the slides? When objects are placed near each other together, they're perceived as a group. Proximity in life is community, like us here today. It satisfies our need to belong, and it pacifies our fear of void. Similarity is the second way we can achieve unity. It says that where elements that share similar position, sizes, or color, or shape, or texture are seen as related, they form a group or a pattern. In our lives, similarity makes us feel safe and belonging. And for those of you who were at the diversity talk before this is one of the things that it touches in our profound way to be human. The opposite of similarity is diversity. Diversity can make us curious about the unfamiliar and the unknown. It can be viewed as a great value and enrichment, and it is. But it can also make us suspicious and afraid, and it can also breed intolerance and hostility. The third way to achieve unity and harmony is through repetition and rhythm. Recurring positions, size, color, or use of graphic elements create unity. This is repetition, and this is rhythm. Rhythm is repetition with a focal point interruption. So having routines and breaking routines, appreciating comfort and breaking out of comfort. This is how it translates in life. A good quality life requires routines. Our bodies and minds' fluxes are rhythmic. And nature thrives on routines, cycles, and rhythms. The fourth way we can achieve unity is through variations on a theme. They provide continuity, so we can recognize a pattern, but they retain interest, so they don't get bored. Variations on a theme are powerful ways to create systems. They help us establish a recognizable and usable symbolic language. And in life, well, pasta is great. You eat pasta in Greece, right? But if you don't change the sauce, it gets horrible, like very, very soon. So let's give these concepts a few seconds to sink in before we move on to the third principle. The third principle is Gestalt. Gestalt is a German noun that defines something that is made of many parts and yet is somehow more than or different from the combination of its parts. And the fundamental principle behind Gestalt visual perception is the law of Prägnanz, which is the German word for pittiness, which means concise and meaningful. It states that humans tend to order their experience in a manner that is regular, orderly, symmetrical, and simple. And that minds perceives external stimuli as a whole. Basically, humans tend to simplify and generalize. So here, for example, we see the white shape or the orange background, not the single orange pieces. In design, this means that all the elements that are part of the whole are affected by what surrounds them, each other. Gestalt principles are key to well-applied web accessibility, for example. We will see that in more details. In life, Gestalt means that natural systems and their properties should be viewed as wholes, not as a collection of parts. In fact, that's how we perceive experiences holistically. We are, interestingly, in a concert hall. When you hear a concert, we perceive the entire musical experience. We don't perceive each singular instrument. And the same is true with food. It's a combination of ingredients, but what we perceive is the combination of those ingredients, not the single ingredients. And this is true for any human experience. For example, think how pleasant sounds or a disturbing smell can enhance or ruin your being somewhere. In digital design, this is particularly important, and the reason why a good user experience is at the base of any successful product. Gestalt psychologists argue that these principles exist because the mind has an innate disposition to perceive patterns in the stimulus based on certain rules. These rules are organized into various principles, which include proximity, similarity, closure, continuity, and simplicity. We have already seen proximity and similarity as ways to achieve harmonious unity. With closure, our minds tend to see a complete figure, even when it's shown only parts of it. Here's again our panda and two other examples of parts that are not really there, but are perceived by our minds because the brain completes the image. In life, closure may lead us to jump to conclusions, which can be a problem if not handled carefully. With continuity, minds perceive objects on a path as being grouped together. And the cat kills me every time. It's... So basically, we jump to conclusions based on the way we perceive something is going. In life, it can lead us to have prejudice, which can also become a problem, especially if we add judgment to that perception. With simplicity, elements of objects tend to be perceived as group if they form a pattern that is regular, simple, and orderly. So we see a U, we see an X before we see the single elements perceiving it. We see an image. In life, these may lead us to generalize and be superficial. So Gestalt principles applied to life should be reminders that perception and reality may differ. And things may never be as simple or predictable as we might think or like. And I'm going to let that sink through and drink. This is actually a good excuse. The fourth principle is hierarchy. It's best expressed through proximity, and it's necessary to express priority. In design, we can achieve hierarchy through size, and for a lack of a better example, you're going to get to see my online portfolio as an example of position. We read things from top to bottom and left to right. So item placed first at the top and then on the left are considered more important, which is why logos on websites are placed in that corner. And we naturally look first at the top and move our eye down. And if there are multiple items on one row, we will naturally start on the left and move towards the right. Negative, or white space. We talked about it already, but the more negative space you generally give to an item, the more important is perceived as being. Negative space allows you to focus on the item that it's surrounded by space. And this is a key to Apple's design philosophy, for example. A lot of white space creates importance to the item within that space. By manipulating the relationship between the parts, we can change the cumulative perception of the whole. The next way is color. We can indicate hierarchy with color, rather obviously, but we'll talk about color more in a while. And lastly, we can use contrast. Can be in pattern, in mood, in lines, in color. All of these can create hierarchy in your design. But contrast will also get its own little section. And then repetition provides meaning to visual elements and allows us to more easily and quickly assimilate information. When you see and understand an iconic information, the rest can be understood and decoded more easily. When you see items in a list, you can better predict the context of the preceding item in the same list. Alignment creates order and visual coherence to a design. It allows for our audience to place relative importance to the elements of a page, establish a beginning and an end point, and associate items together or apart, depending on their alignment or misalignment. For example, David Carson uses this very well. His work can sometimes take us aback and leave us intrigued. This is a bathroom door in an hotel. In life, hierarchy can be determined in many ways and applied to many things. Size is important, negatively or positively. It depends upon the circumstances. Position in hierarchical situations, especially in social relations, can be a determining factor on our behaviors. Color, as we will see, is metaphorically vital in our life. In societal hierarchy, though, it assumes a whole different meaning, one we are only beginning to reassess lately. Contrast in life is to establish hierarchy, is visible in nature in its purer forms, and in mankind's incapability for peace in a less noble version. Repetition is boring, but it's reassuring. Hierarchy in life can be an asset, can be a goal, an imposition, a privilege, an opportunity, or a penalty. But it literally boils down to how we identify and manage priorities. And I'm going to let that sink through as well. The fifth principle is related to hierarchy and his contrast and dominance. Lack of dominance in a group of equally weighted elements forces competition against them. And this is true in life as well. In design, lack of contrast dominance creates messages that are hard to decipher and offer unpleasant experience. Which one would you rather read? Headers, body sizes, font styles, all aid in creating a reading hierarchy and thus a better experience through legibility and information architecture. Contrast in life generally manifests a need for change or more balance. The sixth principle is color. In the words of Alex White, color is partly artistry, but mostly science and common sense. In design, we can use color to attract attention, to identify and group elements, to indicate meaning, to create hierarchy, to convey a mood, what about life? Well, aside from the practical or fashionable applications, I'm told by a friend of mine that her husband actually has a library like this and orders his books by color. Color in life is found in more than chromatic expressions. People, emotions, friends, lovers, family, pets, music, food, passions, likes and dislikes, That's the color in our lives, its flavor and some of its meaning. The last and seventh principle is balance. And while it may be the last, is not the least important by any means. In fact, if we should be forced into a hit parade of principles, I would say it's the one we should strive for. Balance can be defined as the state of equalized tension, though not necessarily a state of calm. In design, we identify three types of balance. The first is symmetrical or formal, and it's vertically centered, visually equivalent on both sides, and evokes feelings of stativity, classicism, formality, consistency, tradition, and sturdiness. And then we have asymmetrical or informal balance. And it presents a variety of sizes and a careful use of white space, and evokes feelings of dynamism, modernity, power, energy, and vitality. And then we can also have bad balance, which is called overall or mosaic balance. And it's a situation where there is too much information, a lack of contrast and hierarchy, has poor information architecture, and it basically boils down that when our eyes cannot focus on anything specific when landing on any type of design, the feelings that are evoked are of confusion, and our minds are ethologically trained to withdraw from things that are unsettling or confusing. So if your design is confusing, people are going to move over. In life, it's a little harder to achieve balance than in design. Still, we should all try to. A good mix of harmony, priorities, contrast, and color, combined with an holistic vision and a wise use of space, are the key ingredients to design a desirable, valuable, interesting, and worthy life. And I'm going to let this sink in for a few seconds. Ευχαριστώ.